Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Hidden Agenda. I'm going to try not to make this one long. I'm exhausted. First thing I want to get, we're going to talk about the forum last night, but the first thing I want to do is I want to thank Gary Ross and Terry Beecham from Coleman Owen last night and doing their podcast at 5:30. If you didn't tune in, you definitely need to go back in and watch their video. You can hear where they stand on the issues. And kind of get a gauge on if they're candidates you're interested in voting for. But thank you guys again for coming on. Y'all did a great job. We really appreciate it. Alrighty, let's talk about the forum last night. There we go. I got my gain up some more. Maybe that's better for you, Sandy. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Rutan Club out there in Crossroads. I think it's actually the Barkerton Rutan Club, but and I may be wrong about that. But anyway, thank you guys for hosting that last night. It was good to see all the candidates up there. It was different than the one at LHS. I mean, the candidates had an opportunity to do a sales pitch in the beginning, which is a good thing, so you get to hear it again. Another perspective, and that gives them a chance to fine-tune whatever they wanted to put out to you from last Wednesday's Meet the Candidates. Anyway, you could definitely tell they were a little more relaxed, not as stressed about getting up and talking. There was a Q&A session there as well, and I kind of liked it because it was lending a little bit more towards a debate than it did towards independent candidates coming up there and just addressing one question and not having a back and forth. Last night there was a back and forth, and I think that was very conducive for helping the citizens know who they want to vote for. So, that was a great thing. And I do want to say I want to apologize to you guys about the video. Some of the candidates used the microphones, some didn't. I'm not sure how on earth I can work the audio on that there. I'm going to probably have to boost it up a little bit because some were kind of quiet. Where the other ones use the mic and you could hear them pretty clearly. So we're going to have to see what we can do on that there. And then when the Q&A session started, the candidates were standing around the room. So we were trying to pan. There's a couple times I lifted the camera off the mic stand to see if that would work some. And I just got back to putting it back on. And then the candidates were kind of constantly moving around, or some of them were anyway. So, my apologies for the video part of that there, and for the audio part. Hopefully we can get that kind of boosted up and make it a little bit better for you guys to come back and look into. I'm not going to dig in and do a review of each candidate like I did last time. I really think that you guys need to watch the video because there's some very good information put in there. There's some information that was counter argued, which kind of I ain't gonna say heated by any means, but you could tell there's some tension in the air. We're still digging in some of that there to find out for sure where the facts are. So we're not going to get too elaborate on that there. I really think that you guys need to watch the video to hear where these candidates stand on the issues. I'll pop out a couple of things that I thought was pretty interesting in there. Just some highlights, if you would. We're definitely hearing a lot about a multi-use venue, an ag center, or whatever it may be. And if you go back in, I mean, this isn't a new discussion. This isn't even a new discussion in county government. This has been going on for some time now. I'm just going to speculate here. I think back in 23 is when I heard the conversation really kind of pick up some. And we'll be putting up a post that will solidify that for you so you understand exactly where that's at and what's going on with it. In addition to the mayor and sheriff candidates, the District 1 commissioners were able to talk. Jeff James I had talked to earlier in the day, and they also mentioned it last night. Jeff has been feeling under the weather, so he didn't attend last night, which is probably a good thing in that closed environment. Don't need to get anybody sick. And Junior Carter and I actually talked earlier in the day as well. Junior was his sister was having a pacemaker installed, so he was up at Vanderbilt with her. So those two were not in attendance, but Mark James was, and he got up there and spoke. And Mark, he kind of, if you've never listened to Mark doesn't, he shoots from the cuff. He lays everything out there on the sleeve, and so you can kind of know where Mark stands. So, again, this is a good thing to look back into to listen to. We also got to hear from John Cavness and Mark Montgomery. They're the two candidates that are running for the trustees position. So they pretty much just did a kind of a condensed sales pitch as well. They didn't really get into any Q&A there. So one of the first things, and it kind of shocked me, was the talk about an affidavit, having to sign an affidavit at the Republican primary. So which means when you go to the polls, starting early voting in through May 5th, you'll have to sign an affidavit stating that you're a Republican. What they're trying to do is trying to correct the issues with the Republican Party there. Surprisingly, the candidate that got up there and spoke was Blake Mitchell. And Blake's actually running as an independent, not a Democrat. He made sure that he cleared that up with you guys. He is not a Democrat. He is a very conservative individual, but he is running as a independent because he didn't run on the Republican ticket because he didn't meet the bona fide requirements as established by the GOP. So we'll get that out of the way. But they actually had Blake come up there and talk about it. And then there was a call for Eddie Akins, who's the chairman of the local Republican Party. And Eddie got up there and spoke, and the first thing he said is, the information that Blake was putting out was correct. And he went on to elaborate about how the Republican Party is trying to clean up to ensure that we're only Republican, bona fide Republican candidates are running in the election. So probably at the next election, they're going to be a lot more tight and stringent about having Republicans, verified Republicans, bona fide Republicans running on the ticket. So according to Eddie, they kind of gave a waiver this year. And he said that that's going to probably change here pretty shortly. So that's something to take in consideration. In a couple of years, we're going to see another election in the county, which will be a Republican election. Make sure that you're voting in the Republican primaries and you're getting to be a bona fide status. And I also recommend that if you have not, go to the Republican, the state GOP party, and research the bylaws. It's not just about how you vote. You also have to be a member of a Republican-approved Republican organization. In the county here, we've got a local Republican Party, which Eddie, again, is the chairman of. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to Eddie Akins about how to become part of that organization. I know in the past they've had very, very limited attendance, and I don't know who's on the. I really don't know if there's a log there or a roll of who's on that there. But Blake also mentioned up that the state legislature is looking into doing what we have right now is an open primary. And what that means is anybody can vote in it pretty much. You're supposed to be a Republican, but it's kind of an open primary where they don't check your credentials. And I think what's happening is with the affidavits is to try to take and start saying, all right, yeah, you've sworn allegiance to the Republican Party now. And if they do close the primaries, as Blake was stating, what will happen there is you will, right now in Tennessee, you do not register as Republican, you do not register as an independent, a Democrat, Libertarian, whatever. That may change here with the state legislature. They may change it where you actually will become a card-carrying Republican. So, and when you go to vote in the next primary, Republican primary, you'll probably get to the point where you'll have to show a card to be able to vote in the primary. Now, I've had people ask me about this here today because discussion's been going on about last night. I think the Republican Party's not thinking this thing through like they didn't think through the bona fide status. Just because you have a card does not mean that you have to have a card to be able to vote in the Republican primary. But it does not require you, I wouldn't think they can require you to vote for a Republican in a general election. If that was the case, then that means you're not able to pick who you think is the best candidate. It means the only person you get to pick would be the Republican candidate. So, we'll see how this here plays out. Who knows? I mean, it's just it is what it is. It's trying to get control of making sure that Republicans are running in the Republican primary. So, and I'll throw my 2 cents in there. I think these primaries are kind of useless. Let everybody run up in there in the general election. Let the best man win or woman. Just let the citizens decide who they want to represent them, be it Republican or Democrat or independent. I mean, let the citizens make that choice based on the candidate themselves. I mean, that's kind of the best way to go about it. I'll tell you something that just in conversations I have quite a bit here, there's a lot of people here I've talked to that voted for Jimmy Carter back in the 70s. I mean, Georgia's not far from us here. He's a peanut farmer. He's kind of, a good old Southern boy. I think Jimmy Carter was a fine human being. I just think he was an ineffective president. And most of the people I talk to kind of feel the same way. Also, a lot of the people I talk to who are Republicans right now voted for Bill Clinton. Again, next door in Arkansas. I mean, and say what you will. I mean, Clinton did work with, he did cross party lines and got things done for the state. So, I mean, I think he wasn't too bad of a president other than his indiscretions, if we would. Anyway, moving along from that there. That was one of the things that was up. Like I said, we heard about the event center. There's a big push for that there. We're hearing a lot about growth and a big push for growth. And with growth, we're talking about housing and industry. And I want to kind of touch on that there a little bit here. And also, we're talking about, commercial and business as well. Some of the conversation was discussing about Parker's Crossroad and the potential for growth up there. Here's where my thing is with all of this here, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it. Growth requires one thing. When you talk about housing, industry, retail, you got to have land. Now, granted, we got a really good industrial park out there, which could grow there. But I mean, one of the problems that Blake brought up is it's controlled by the Industrial Development Board, and they're not doing anything really to actively promote the industrial park. So there's some issues in there, as far as the growth potential there. But when you get into it, I mean, we start bringing in more industry, and what happens, with the industry we've already got. Now, something else too that was kind of said last night by multiple people, and it kind of caught my attention, was if you go out by, I think Nidec was one of the businesses. Somebody had driven through the parking lot, and what they found out there was a lot of automobiles with tags from Chester County, Decatur County, Carroll County, outside of Henderson County. Yeah, I think there was even a Haywood County tag out there. And they were talking about that there, we lose because those people there take that money out of county that's being made here and they take it back to their county. But we also heard about people that are Henderson Countyans working in Madison County, and the same thing was said as they're taking their money out of county. Well, I don't understand that there. If somebody's coming in here to work and they're taking their money somewhere else, then isn't that the same thing as our people just going into Madison County to work, bringing that money back into Henderson County? I mean, I don't. It's kind of like they want to do it both ways to make a political push out there, and it just didn't make any sense. I mean, if our citizens are bringing money back in from Madison County and the people from other counties are moving out there to bringing their money back out to other counties, and it's. I mean, is it a wash? I don't know. I have no clue. I mean, who's keeping up with the data on that information? I don't know. I don't know anybody that would keep up with the data on it. So that said, but my biggest thing here is when we look at stuff is if you want to build houses, you need one thing: land. If you want to build retail stores and hotels and restaurants, you need land. Where's the land coming from? It ain't like we can just snap our fingers and there's some land. That's just not how it works. So, when in the recruitment side of things here, there's, where do you get the land from? I mean, you can't force anybody to sell land. So, and then, but, I'm going to go back in and I'll say I'll agree with what Blake is saying. We really need to fix our infrastructure. I mean, I can't tell you how many times somebody has complained about our water sources here. And we just have crap water. I just can't put it any other way. Some people don't have problems. A lot of people do. That's, and a lot of it is because of sediment in the system. Our pipes are old. Our infrastructure is failing. But you can't keep adding more to the infrastructure and more and more and more without doing some work on that first. So, yeah, you get growth, but the growth, I mean, at what point does it get negated out when you're sitting here dealing with, well, we got an extra, $100,000 in sales and property taxes, but it's cost us $500,000 to enhance the infrastructure to be able to get it. Same thing. I mean, more traffic you put on the roads, the worse the roads get. It's just we've got some serious issues, and we keep putting the cart before the horse all the time, and we never get the infrastructure fixed. So that's something to really look into. Now going back into this thing with the ag center or multi-use center or whatever you want to call it, I hear the term multi-use and I hear the term ag center, and the term ag center I hear a lot. So I'm going to say this here. When people talk about stuff, there's a couple things that we hear about is people having horses. So I'm assuming they're probably looking at having an ag center for barrel racing, rodeo, whatever. And then maybe it doubles as an event center for a Dance with the Stars. I don't know. But here's the deal. Number one, you got to have land. And you got to have a lot of land when you build a center like that there because you got to have parking to go with it. It's not just the building itself. You have to have parking. And you've got to have, infrastructure to be able to sustain that. And, of course, you've got to have roads going into it, so wherever it may be. This is my concern with the whole thing. We've got so many buildings that we don't maintain as it is. Is this just going to be another one that we put up there and we don't maintain it and it gets decrepit and falls apart because that's just what happens? We don't have a track record to justify bringing something like this here in because we don't have a track record of taking care of what we got, and that's part of the problem. Um, and that's, how do you get that corrected? I don't know. I mean, I think you really need good leadership in here, and getting away from the family and friends thing, and sit here and hire competent people who are willing to do the job, and that's just the nuts and bolts of it. But I know there's a big push for this here. There was talk about doing it private public, where we're actually working with private entities, and there was talk about grants for this stuff, and ways of doing it without costing the taxpayer anything. And yeah, I mean, you may be able to build it without costing taxpayers anything. What happens when you got to maintain it? Who you think's paying for it? Taxpayers. Who's going to generate the revenue off of it? I mean, are we going to sit here and say, okay, well, you know what? We hold an event here, we have a concert in it, or we have a rodeo in it, and it generates $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Who gets the money? Well, if you're doing this here in a partnership with the private, who's advertising it? Who's going to promote this thing? All those things have to come into play, and that all costs money. That, it's fine and dandy to say, well, we can figure out a way to pay for it. You still got to operate it. And nobody wants to talk about those issues. Nobody wants to bring it up there because guess what? They probably don't have a plan for it. So, those are some of the things that were kind of brought up. There was some, just, like I said, there's a lot of conversation there. I really think that, oh yeah, and Tim just brought up a good point here. Most grants have a match. So if there's a grant out there, the chance of us getting it for free is pretty slim and none. There's going to be some kind of match where we're going to have to take and get out there and put money into it. And guess who has to put the money into it? Again, the taxpayers. As Tim was saying, some grants are up to 50-50. We just saw that there within this industrial development grant for the city with the $5 million building. And initially we're told that there's no match. Well, come to find out, there's a 50% match. So, at this point, I mean, guess who's got to pay for that there? We do. Again, where does the land come from? Where are you putting this thing here at? There's a lot of question marks that there's no answers to. So, it's something to consider there. So, like I said, I really think if you go back in and listen and pay attention to the questions and to the information being shared, you'll gain a lot from watching that video. I really think that this meeting was definitely more effective than the one last week, as far as kind of seeing where candidates are and and hearing them go back and forth. I think that was a wonderful wonderful thing there to hear them kind of debate somewhat on the topics and the questions that came about. There is something else too that I'm going to take and I want to talk about here. I don't know if this started last night, if it started today, or whatever. Brad Atkinson last night made a comment, and pretty much what the comment was is one of the things he wants to do is get back to the fact we're baptizing people into jail, and apparently that's fallen off. It used to be it used to happen quite often pre-COVID. And since COVID, it's just kind of gone downhill from that point. And from what I'm gathering is, I mean, we used to have a lot of churches involved there, a lot of denominations, and that's fallen off as well. Now, I've had, before this was brought up last night, where Brad brought it up, we've actually talked about this in the past. And, this is one of the things that he wants to kind of do. But what Brad did was, he did call out... I'm just going First Baptist Church. He called out they're not doing any baptisms, and then he did Rodney Campbell with the Pilgrim's Rest that Rodney's not doing any baptisms. I kind of thought he was just sharing information, just establishing fact out there, and he did go back in and say that First Pentecostal used to do a lot of them, and. I think what Brad was trying to say was I want to get back to the fact where we've got multiple denominations in there, so people can choose. I mean, if they know what religion they are, they may want to take and probably get baptized for their denomination. You know, so you know, but what's happened is some people has taken this thing out of context from what he said, and it kind of blew up. Well, and they felt like he was attacking the churches, and you know, I never got that impression when we talked about this here a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't get that impression last night, but apparently some people did. Some people took offense to it, and it's caused quite a bit of stir. And now Brad has gone back in and typed up something, and shared it, and he's even still catching some fire over that. So, you know, I'm going to say, like I said, I've had conversations with him about this already, and Brad's my friend. I'm just going to say it plain as day. Last night, Brad come up and shook my hand, and you know, there's candidates who won't do that, and if for you guys who haven't paid attention, I mean, there's a lot of candidates who haven't come on the podcast this time around, where we had quite a few come on during the city election. And I'm going to go ahead and share this here. And Brad, I hope you don't get upset for me sharing this, but I'm just going to share it. I had quite a few people contact me, and then I actually verified it with Brad. I had to ask the question. But he was told that if he had anything to do with me, that he would lose votes. Now, this is coming from a church member, a sitting politician, who told him that. You know, Brad didn't share the information with me. I had to ask him, and he didn't hide it from me. But what tells me about Brad's character is Brad, again, last night when he came up, he said, "I'm your friend, and I'm going to shake your hand." And that speaks a lot to me about his character, is that he, you know, he chose to say, you know what, I'm going to remain your friend. I'm not going to take and bow down to pressure. And if I lose votes, I lose votes, because it's not about votes. You know, it's about what's right and what's wrong. And I appreciate that tremendously. I mean, I really do. And again, that speaks to Brad's character. It annoys me, I'm just going to say it here, it annoys me that people are using God for political purposes. And it's just wrong. And I don't believe that was Brad's intent whatsoever. I believe that Brad's intent was to try to get God back into jail as much as possible to be able to reach everyone. You know, and I'll give you a quick little story. The best teacher I ever had, I mean by far the best teacher, every time I left church, every single time, I had tears in my eyes. And I know we talked about this in a previous podcast. I felt the Spirit in me every single time. And that is something I have yearned for so long, and I haven't found it. But that teacher didn't have a problem getting up there and saying, "Hey, you know what? I was a convicted felon, cocaine." And he found God in prison. And he became a teacher. I mean, he didn't preach to me. You know, he taught me Scripture, and he probably had the biggest impact in my relationship that I have with God right now. So I understand what Brad is trying to do there, and you know what? And I don't think Brad's the only one. I think the other sheriff's candidates can see the value in it as well. Getting God back into jails is huge. And I'm going to tell you another story here, and this is something that, you know, I'm sure probably upset some people, but I'm just going to go and do it anyway. When I first moved out here, I was in Tipton County, and a friend I made out there, we had a conversation one night over a bonfire, and you know, we were talking about God, and he asked me my beliefs. He's like, "You know, you believe in God?" "Absolutely." And he did. He said, "I don't believe in God." He said, "But I believe in faith." He said, "I believe that people gain from having faith." He said, "I don't think it's a bad thing at all." And that just kind of floored me. That really kind of floored me that he admitted that he didn't believe in God, but he believed in faith, and he thought that that was a great thing for people. And I'd never heard anybody I've ever been around that's never told me, I don't believe in God. So I mean, I didn't know how to take it. I mean, this is something. I mean, I'm 40 years old, and I'm first time ever hearing anybody say that. It just wasn't fathomable to me. But what he said is faith, and that's something to me that you have to start somewhere. And if you don't believe in God, any access that you have to God, to me, helps. And for those who don't believe in God, that's fine. That's your choice. I don't think by pushing people away we gain anything. I think we do better job if we open doors and bring God in and bring them in so they can learn. But if we can start them with something, if we can give them faith and belief in something positive, then we can move it forward and grow. You know what? I would love to see that we don't have re-entry. I would love to see that we don't ever have the same criminal back into jail twice. Because tell you what, at some point in time frame, the greater percentage of us are law-abiding citizens. And, I think that's I think if we can find ways to get people in and not closing doors and not going after each other or fussing and fighting over God in politics. It's one of those things there that just kind of, I think we have a lost opportunity with. It is what it is. I mean, I really think that that's an awesome thing that we can take, and if we can affect one life, it's worth it. Now, and I'm going to say this here, the baptisms, to me, is more symbolic than anything else. Salvation is believing, but if it is one thing that will help solidify that belief and that faith, then by all means we need to take every effort we can. Because what good is the church if it's not trying to save souls? I mean, really. I mean, that's the whole point of it, is to try to take and impact every single life it can in a positive sense. And it is what it is. I mean, so, yeah. Anyway, Brad Atkinson, you're my friend, brother, and nothing changes that. Nothing will change that there. I appreciate what you do, and I stand tall in your integrity and character for everyone to know. Something else I want to talk about. At the last night and then last week, and man, I'm gonna tell you, it's been, I think, since the Get Rid of James Lavelle garage sale post went up. I've had a lot of people actually reaching out to me. People I don't know. I mean, just come up and talk to me and saying hello, and I appreciate you. It really, I can't say it enough to you that I appreciate that you guys are here, that you're paying attention, that you're watching, that you're listening, that you're learning. Because this affects, everything that happens here affects you as much as it affects me and anyone else. So I can't thank you guys enough, and for the support that you've given me. Because tell you what, this has been a rocky road, and there ain't no doubt about this here. But I do it because I believe it is the right thing to do. And I'm gonna, one of the conversations, again, I know I'm probably talking more about God this conversation, but it is what it is. Some always talk about, you're always fighting. And I'm like, well, yeah. I said, no, so let's go back in and take a look. If and they were trying to put it in a sense that you're constantly fighting, and that's just not what religion has taught me. But is it not? Fighting isn't always a physical altercation. Fighting is to do what is right. And I'm going to just, in Genesis, the struggle there was against the serpent. And let's look at the closing in Revelations. I mean, it's always been a fight. Look at Saul, David. There's a fight there. Even Jesus himself was fighting in a way. Was it with, in the sense that, you may think of confrontation? Maybe not so, but it doesn't have to be to have to stand and fight. We can take and do, we can take a stand and still do so in righteousness. So that's kind of where I'm at with things. Is I'm trying to do the right thing to help people out. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate you trusting me. I do everything I can to bring you that there. As much as information as I can get to share with you, because I believe that you do need transparency. And you got to ask yourself one thing: if people are fighting against me because I'm being transparent with you, can you trust them to be transparent with you? Because they certainly aren't. That's where the fight is at. But anyway, I'm gonna close this thing here up. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm a little bit longer than I thought I was. Again, watch the video, learn, listen, pay attention, hear what's being said. If you have questions, by all means, post questions on the video post. Send me a message. Reach out. The more information you have, the better educated you are on things, and so you understand how it operates. And that's really what we're trying to do here. And I do want to say again, thank you guys for tuning in, and continue to be with us. This has been a long road. It's been a bumpy road, but we're still here standing. And even in my absence, I'm not going to give up for you. No, I'll keep doing what I do. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night. Reminder to tune in Thursday night at 7 o'clock. We've got Commissioner Jack Johnson coming on to do a Q&A. And I am going to extend this offer right now to any of the candidates out there. We are coming up on early voting starting April 15th. With obviously May 5th is going to be the primary day. Any candidate who would like to come on the podcast, I will do everything I can to work around scheduling. I do already have, next week we've got Don Eubank coming in. We've got Will Davis coming in. I know there's going to be a city meeting Monday night and a county meeting Tuesday night. So, we'll have to work around it. We'll do everything we can to work around it. Wednesdays is one day I do not do podcast. And Sundays I'm going to be, I prefer not to do a podcast, but if we need to in the middle of the day, sometimes Sunday we can. And if I need it, Saturdays I work half day. I'll do everything I can to work around my schedule. But if there's any candidates at this point in time frame, reach out to me because time is running out. We are doing, I'll get you guys back in here, give you an opportunity. And, I get it. I get it. I'm sure some of y'all have had the same thing that Brad had. That if you have anything to do with the taxpayers page or with me, then you'll lose votes. That's a decision you got to make. But I will say this here. It's your choice. You've got an opportunity right now to come up here. If you think you're going to lose votes doing so, then so be it. I will say this much: we've everyone in the city who did not come up here on the podcast, the ones who didn't come up here aren't sitting on the board or in the mayor's seat. I mean, it's just the facts are the facts. So take it for what it is. Reach out to me, shoot me a message, call, text me 731-307-8408. I'll be more than happy to do everything I can to work around and see if we can get you on. All right, guys, y'all have a wonderful night. Again, thank you so much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate everything that you guys have been doing and standing with us. Y'all have a great night, and we'll catch you on the flip side.